Marketing Podcast, where you will hear marketing tips from business experts within the vegan, ethical and ecological sphere. Today I'm talking to Heather Landex, who's a food safety expert, training restaurants, hotels, cafes and other food outlets to make money by becoming more allergy friendly. Heather has recently launched a book which helps food-related businesses to take a more inclusive approach with step-by-step instructions and resources which will ultimately help them to raise their profits. Welcome, Heather, and thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I've briefly outlined what you do, but would you like to go into a little more detail about how you help businesses?
So before COVID, I went from restaurants, usually franchised restaurants that are quite big chains, American ranch restaurants, in various countries. I've been in a lot of countries. I've also been in a lot of countries in food services as food service staff. And what I did was check their food safety standards. So I'd check all the temperatures, they're not going to poison anyone. And a very small, minute aspect of that is allergy management. However, usually they're just telling people they can't eat there. So there's everything in everything, basically. There's 14 allergies that are sort of legislated. They should have information about ingredients and these allergies. And usually they tick all the boxes and say you can't eat here. If you have a milk allergy, don't eat here. So when lockdown happened, and following my own allergy attack in 2019, I've been paying a lot of attention. So the problem is that basically they exclude people. And that's how my service developed, is that I'm trying to help them include more people. And actually it's evolved that they could include a lot more people. And I've had input from people like yourself that have told me that it's actually even more profitable to include more people.
So you mentioned briefly about your experience that kind of started this whole kind of journey towards writing a book. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened?
Well, in about March time, 2019, I became vegan. And that day I decided I'd be a bit annoying. That was basically the decision, wasn't it? Because I was already vegan in my head. And it was just about everyone else telling me I'm not allowed to be, or it's not healthy, or it's inconvenient, or it's not possible. That's what I kept being told it was impossible. So I thought I'll prove you wrong. And sometimes I won't be able to eat, or sometimes I'll have to be really annoying and unpopular, which is not really my nature to be unpopular. I do like to please people and be friendly, but this was just I think I have the right not to eat something. But then, which is really bizarre, is in August, so only 6 months later-ish, I was particularly tired, and I'd been out traveling for work, and I'd been, working long hours, and I'd been staying in a hotel. But in the morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and lips and a full body rash, which got worse and worse during the morning. So I rang the emergency doctors. It's a bit like 111 in the UK. It's a bit like ringing the emergency room, but not ringing an ambulance. And they said, "Oh, get yourself to hospital." And I was like, "Oh, that's an overreaction." So I took a cold shower thinking I had like heat rash, or, I'd had a cider the night before and not finished it because I'd sort of not passed out drunk, but passed out tired, and not even finished my drink. And I thought, oh, maybe that was a bit there, maybe I shouldn't have had that because I was already tired. But when I went to breakfast and I had a coffee, which usually makes me feel better if I'm tired, I felt really unwell. So I went to reception and I was trying to check out and organise my hire car, organise work and these sort of things. And so the receptionist offered me an antihistamine, and I thought, oh, great. Because I didn't have my own, because I hadn't been having, since I'd become vegan, I hadn't been having any allergies, which is really because I usually have hay fever. So I didn't even have my own antihistamines with me, so I had to borrow one from the receptionist. And then I said, oh, keep an eye on me, because the doctor said I should go to hospital. And I was just waiting for the pharmacy to open, basically. And I sat there and I thought, oh, I feel really funny. So I got up, because I was going to say to her, oh, I feel funny. I might have to do something else, like go home, basically, which was a whole flight away. It was a long wait. It was a 5-hour train journey away. So I was like, I don't feel very well. And when I was getting to the desk, because there was like one person in front of me, I was just stood there and nearly collapsed. And the receptionist took me behind the reception desk and called an ambulance. And in that time, I really thought I was in anaphylaxis. Like, I couldn't breathe. My hands had gone white, like I was dead, like grey, white. And I couldn't feel my feet. Yeah, so she lied me down in like with my legs in the air, like you do if someone's going into shock. And the ambulance arrived and they gave me oxygen and stuff. And until that point, I just thought I was about to die.
That's so frightening.
It is really frightening. And at the hospital, they gave me immunosuppressants and really big pills. I think it was just really strong antihistamines as well as some of the, like steroids, which made me feel a bit funny. But I might have felt funny anyway because I'd probably had a bit of shock. And the doctor at the hospital, who's, I don't know what her title was, she told me, avoid milk because it might be anaphylaxis next time. And I went, sir, I could die at any moment. I wrote my will. I like told my husband where my will. I had like a handwritten, if I die, you can find someone else type of, very basic will, not a real will. We do have a draft will somewhere. So I was just terrified. And it wasn't, I went to my doctor and they hadn't got the test results from the hospital, but they referred me to an allergist and there was a 4-month wait. So for 4 months, I thought I was allergic to milk. I was a vegan. So why would I have had milk if I'm a vegan? And I think it was only then. I'm a food safety expert. I know about these labels that have may contain written on them. And, there's risk of traces of and all of these things that they use in legal terminology. But I never thought as a vegan I'd be at risk of anaphylaxis from milk. It didn't make any sense. And it wasn't until 4 months later they tested me for milk allergy. They check your immunity, how you would react to milk. And it wasn't milk, luckily. But it turns out, and my allergist didn't know this about vegans, but if you stop eating milk for quite a few months, you're probably going to be lactose intolerant.
I didn't know
And
that
obviously
either.
there's obviously a gradient, and I'm very lactose intolerant. So the confusion of other allergies I might have, like I'm allergic to dust mites, which I didn't know I was allergic to dust mites. It was just through these tests. And I'm so allergic to dust mites, it could have been that, alongside lactose intolerance, which confused the symptoms of a food allergy. But I probably also, because I have really bad hay fever, have allergies to other foods, which I also didn't know as a food safety person. I didn't know that you could have an allergy to melon, lemon, citrus fruits, and all these other things just because you've got hay fever. I didn't realize there was a link, and it can make you tingle and swell up and things, a bit like a pseudo allergy, if you like.
Oh,
So it's
because
not at all deadly. It's
some
not at all
people
deadly. Yeah.
Yeah, get that tingling on their lips, don't they, with certain foods? It makes their lips.
Yeah, and I've had dermatitis and blisters before, and I think it might be that. It might be from handling citrus fruit.
Really?
But I don't know if it is citrus fruit. It's very, very difficult to figure out what you're allergic to, especially if you're allergic to other things that are not food. But I'm definitely lactose intolerant. So now I avoid milk, and I think I'm a bit cross. I got annoyed enough to write a book about it that may contains a voluntary. So if you've got a packet, you look on the back and it says may contain, you might think, oh, I shouldn't eat this because it's got may contain milk written on it. And actually, it might contain tiny amounts that I could probably still eat that. Or it might definitely not contain something, but they've stuck may contain on it to reduce liability of recalls and the expense. And it is very, very strict legislation, because if you say it doesn't have something, if it's free from, it has to be absolutely zero. And another complication is gluten-free doesn't mean the same. Gluten-free means something especially about gluten. It's not an allergy. It's about celiacs and reducing it to under 20 parts per million, which people also don't realize. They confuse those two.
So it can
And
still
I
have
never
gluten in
really
it,
thought, yeah, and I never really, it can have gluten in it, even though it's gluten-free.
even though it's tiny. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tiny amount. Yeah, tiny amount. And they can prove that by testing it. So that is really strictly enforced by trading standards, not by food safety, which it probably is a food safety thing. So that's why they enforce it. So that's like the pedestal is gluten-free when actually it should be milk-free.
Yeah.
And I think it is because of these absolutes that food businesses, whatever level of the food chain, are a bit confused about may contains. They're trying to get rid of this liability, and they're terrified of people having anaphylaxis because it's quite scary that you might kill someone in a few seconds or a few minutes. So they're actually excluding people because they think they're being responsible, and people with anaphylaxis can go to the free from section. But what I'm trying to educate them is there's this whole gradient of people like me who might accept a little bit or accept some risk, but they really generally want to avoid, as far as they possibly can, avoid that that food item because they'll get sick. And I think these people that get sick, like intolerances or milder allergies, are not considered. It's protect the people with anaphylaxis. Fair enough. If it's free from, it should be safe for them. But these may contains are just confusing people. And if it doesn't say may contain, because it's voluntary, it's also not free from. It just means they haven't put may contain on there. And I think you have to have a risk assessment, and it has to justify the use of may contain. I think that requirement is a bit confused, because really they should justify if it doesn't contain or if it does contain. It should always be obvious if you can eat it or not. And that it doesn't really mean anything if it says may contain. You don't know how much it may contain. Could it potentially
it's
in a small,
confusing.
Could it be 1 in a million that it contains a lot? Or could it be quite likely it contains a tiny amount? And that is a big difference.
Yeah, that's it. You just have no idea of how risky it is to eat it. So it doesn't really help anyone. Yeah, totally understand.
Yeah, but that's just on packaged food. And in the UK, the laws changes so that packaged food in a like grab and go, like Pret a Manger is really popular for allergies, because it's associated with the law change. The law's called Natasha's law, and it's about a girl called Natasha that died after eating at Pret a Manger, because it wasn't required that these packaged foods that were made in house had all the ingredients on, like it would be if you bought it in the supermarket. It was confusing for consumers. So it was a confusion. They were actually compliant with the law, and it was just a consumer confusion problem. And I'm saying may contains are also a consumer confusion, and even the communication between manufacturers and chefs is a bit confused. And then the risk from the manufacturer is passed along. But what about the risk in the restaurant? So maybe they're communicating the ingredients, but not communicating how it's cooked. What's the risk? Is anyone trained? Does a person know what vegan means? Is the vegan free from? Because the consumer might think if it says vegan or plant-based that it's not got milk in it and they're safe to eat that. And that's not what it means. It means that none of the ingredients are animal products, but it doesn't mean in the kitchen it's not cooked on the same grill or in the same bat. And the plant and the possible
contamination.
Yeah, it's really confusing for everyone to understand all this complex information and what the legal requirements are. And I think the consumer might either be a bit complacent about, I've eaten here before and it's safe. That's not how it works. And I think the substitutions, like the supplier has to provide a different item or a different recipe. And that's quite hard to integrate in their systems. So there's all these hazards, especially because vegan doesn't mean anything legally. You can have a vegan trademark on there that you know that none of the ingredients should be from animal products and none of the process should involve animal products, like beers and wines are suddenly all vegan now because they've changed the processing. And it doesn't involve fish anymore, because no one likes the idea of fish in the beer, right?
Exactly,
I think that's a confusion, because if it was all if vegan meant something, then consumers would know if it was safe for them to eat or not. And it doesn't mean it's free from animal products. It means that it's free from animal ingredients. So it doesn't consider how it's cooked. Is it cooked on the same grill in the same fat? It's probably laced with milk and product itself animal products.
The product itself can be vegan, but then it's how it's processed before somebody eats it that could kind of,
I've got a really good example. So in Burger King, they have plant-based options and vegan options. And the vegan option now, the Vegan Royale, has got the Vegan Society trademark. But the Vegan Society trademark doesn't consider contamination because it doesn't affect the demand for animal products. And that's what the Vegan Society is all about, protecting animals. Whereas the old Vegan Royale, which was removed again, I think it was the end of 2020, they removed it because it was cooked alongside animal products. So therefore it probably contained a percentage, like a decent amount of animal products. And that probably repulsed people that they had to put that in a disclaimer, like, by the way, this contains animal, even though it's vegan. So they removed it. And the Vegan Society have approved this as well. Now it has a disclaimer that says, might be cooked with, so it's not may contain something in the kitchen. It's, we might decide to cook this with crustaceans or mollusks. And I think the strategy is that less people are offended by cooking things with crustacean and mollusks, because it could just be the colorings in something, you know, it could just be really small amount, because where you don't go into Burger King or McDonald's and buy, you know, mussels or oysters or so the only way it could be is
really
probably
random.
a coloring. It's probably a coloring in one of the other products that is cooked in the same fat, right? And they might cook it in the same basket, right? Yeah, because they'll have something. They'll have something that contains something from shellfish. So they like the red colorings, orange colorings.
Yeah, I know that they use beetles
flavorings
to make red, don't they?
Yeah, but sometimes they use crustacean to add flavor to things.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
It's really common that mollusks and crustaceans are included in food because they use it for a different function. It's not for eating prawns. It's for the shell is ground up to use for the coloring or the flavor or some of the I don't know, so processed that I can't really tell you the whole whole thought process behind it. Yeah, and I'm not working in, you know, the back of Burger King or McDonald's going, why does this contain mollusks? I've no idea, but they're saying it might be cooked with, which isn't the same as saying it might contain, because that means the product they're cooking has been in a factory where it might contain. That's a might contain is more acceptable to me than this probably could contain something that could kill someone with a shellfish allergy. But I think if you're avoiding milk, it's a bigger market, because there's 23% of people in the UK population avoiding milk. But there's only the people who've got shellfish allergy avoiding shellfish.
Yeah.
And I think the may contain, it's only for allergy sufferers. It's not, if it's an ingredient, that's different. The whole point, the whole purpose is to give consumers more choice, when actually what it's doing is alienating the people.
Yes, that's it. It's just creating confusion.
It's unfair.
But also it's kind of like narrowing down. So part of what you're talking about is that you're saying to businesses, let's widen your audience by actually looking at how you can avoid confusion and be clear and kind of look at your processes a little bit. You can actually serve an extra percentage of people, because actually this kind of section of the market is actually growing and it's an opportunity. And from your experience, did you say, I mean, I know that we've spoken before and you said, is it like 20% of people think they have an allergy or an intolerance? So that's a lot. So if businesses can kind of zone in on these customers, then that is extra revenue.
Yeah, and I think the people with lactose intolerance is a massive number of people. The people that are vegetarian, but they also want to avoid milk. So they might eat eggs, but not milk. Or they might be on another scale for whole food plant-based, but I occasionally eat fish. Or, you know, there's all these people on these gradients, plant-based towards reducing meat, or, you know, some people who are extreme meat eaters might still avoid milk, you know, or they might still avoid gluten because they have some discomfort with it, or they are sensitive, or obviously if they're anaphylactic. And there's people with intolerances to animal products. If I eat chicken, I get stomach cramps because I'm not used to eating chicken. And that's why I became vegetarian, because I used to just be vegetarian at home, and then eating out was so difficult as a vegetarian even, that I just had chicken because I liked it better than the cheese, some cheeses I don't like. And it was just convenience.
Yeah. But then your body,
I think people need to advocate for themselves that they have the right not to eat something that harms them if they have an intolerance, and they have a right to be considered as you really want to avoid this product. And it doesn't matter what the reason is, if it's environmental beliefs, if it's health, if it's veganism, if it's vegetarianism. If they don't want to eat something, that's their right to not have something in their body. And I think that's disregarded because they're a minority, when actually it's very common, if not the minority is going to overtake the majority soon, with people who are on this plant-based continuum and have allergies and intolerances. And I estimate it's 20 to 40%, because 20% of people report they have an allergy. So that's what they say. And the government are only reporting the people in hospital with anaphylaxis, and they're not reporting the other 19% of people. So if it's 1 in 1,000 people have a serious food allergy, what about the other, 19?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's actually 199 people you're not considering there. So it's huge. And I think there's a lot of people that want it. Like, no one wants extra contamination. It's a bit like the vegan principle. No one wants added cruelty or to be deliberately unethical, or
Yeah.
no one wants to, you know, get fish in their lemon tart because
Yeah.
it's got may contain. They might perceive it that way. And I think this the law is quite strict, but the consumer doesn't know the law.
No.
And that there's a massive gap in awareness and knowledge between all stages, like regulators, suppliers, chefs, and the customer. And it's very tricky and complicated that they just go, oh, I don't know. I don't know. So I'm just going to leave that alone and say, allergy sufferers beware.
Yeah.
14 allergens are used in our kitchen. And you're like, take a look at your kitchen. Is it really? It's not.
Yeah. And so you are helping businesses to actually say, we are safe for allergy sufferers. This is what we do, and this is how we can serve you. And that's what your book's about, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called Inclusive, the new exclusive, because if
Yeah.
you can serve someone who wants to avoid milk for whatever reason, there's 23% of people who don't want to eat milk. If you can serve them really well because they're not served other places, you've got a competitive edge, you've got the group they eat with, and then if they have a good time, they'll post it everywhere because they'll know other people with the same dietary preference.
Yeah, that's it.
That especially works for vegans really well.
Yeah, that's it. We're always talking about food.
Yeah, and there's all these free marketing opportunities with these niche markets. Like vegans have their own apps, their own communities, their own networks where we share what can I buy, what can I eat, what's new.
Yeah. So that's a real another opportunity for businesses as well. So they can use the idea of inclusivity in their marketing, use it to their advantage, and actually use the customers to help promote them as well. So if they serve their customers well, give them a reason to get excited, then they will actually benefit from actually this word of mouth, which is the kind of the most positive way you can market yourself, really.
It's not just the mouth though, is it? Because if I think you were the one that pointed this out to me originally, is if you put on a review site a picture of a nice, I don't know, milk-free something or vegan something, gluten-free, some people think that must be ugly, you know, they think there's something wrong with it because it's gluten-free. If you take a picture of it and it's amazing, it just looks like nice food, and it's a review from someone with this dietary preference saying this was good, you're going to believe that. TripAdvisor can sell you better than you can sell yourself. Google Maps can definitely sell you better than you can sell yourself, especially if you're in a touristic area where people visit from abroad. It's even a worldwide phenomenon. And I think the same is true for allergy sufferers. They have their resources that keep them safe. So if you get a recommendation from a celiac, they can tell all their celiac friends. You can even get a celiac accreditation that says, celiacs, come here, come on a Monday and Tuesday especially, you know. And I think it's the same for Instagram, it's the same for Facebook. If you can say allergy friendly, milk free, can be made gluten free, you've got all these options for all these people. They just search hashtag gluten free, hashtag whichever city, and it's free advertising. And it's a recommendation, isn't it? It's not just free advertising, it's someone else telling them that you're good.
That's it. I think if you can inspire your customers to kind of want to tell other people about you, if you give them an experience that makes them feel like they belong, makes them feel that they are able to be served there, and it's not a problem, and you give them something lovely, then it's easy because they will tell people about it. If they had a great experience, they will tell people on their social media, this is what we've done. And like you say, they'll put all the right hashtags. So the people who are searching for that will actually zone in and find it, because the beauty is that it's so fragmented now. So we can search for whatever we want. We can be really specific. You don't need to be vague. You can search for, like you say, gluten-free or celiac, or, you know, the one thing that you find really important, milk-free. And you can find that. So there's ways of finding your kind of tribe, I suppose, in terms of whatever.
It's to get to number one. You want to be number one on Just Eats. You want to be number one on TripAdvisor. You want to be number one on Google.
Yeah.
And all because your website's got a blog about how fantastic your allergy friendliness is, especially allergy sufferers. And I think vegans experience this well. We have the risk that we get treated badly when we go somewhere. So when we get a recommendation, we know we were going to try that one.
Yeah.
When there's something new, because it's not just the meat's being taken out and you put in a fake meat. When we're not going to get a vegan burger, we're going to get something else, unless it's a burger house. That's acceptable, especially if there's more than one type.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If they're going to get, like, a plant-based place opened It's an ice cream shop. They've got vegan waffles. I've been there 3 times in a week.
And I bet you've
it's not good for my health, but I get really excited. And I think that delight factor, all you had to do was have one option available to me.
Yeah.
That you'd considered me. And I think that worry that I'd get there and be really awkward and embarrassing for my friends because I couldn't eat anything.
Yeah.
Is really high risk for a lot of people. And especially if you're going to get ill. So if I had lactose, I'd be in the toilet within 2 hours. So that really worries me until a few hours after I've eaten. And I think if you've got an allergy, that threat is really anxiety inducing, that if they just eat somewhere and it's safe and they trust the communication was really good. And even if you arrive at a place and they ask you any allergies, like in a really nice, friendly, open way, here's our allergy information. That already reassures me 1,000% better than any competitor.
Yeah, totally. And it just makes you all enjoy your meal as well. So
it's a non-issue because no one noticed you had an allergy. You were just normal, and it should just be normal because it affects that many people. It should just be normal to avoid certain foods, especially animal products, because it has the whole belief system behind it. There's all the religions that are on the scale of veganism. You know, they avoid milk, eggs. There's even avoiding certain types of meat because it's not prepared the right way. It's not slaughtered the right way. They could have the vegan option with something that's not within their dietary requirement on top.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I mean, the other thing, I mean, in terms of my experience, my daughter was allergic to eggs and milk when she was little. And I think that's, from talking to other parents, that's not uncommon. So to be able to take your child, it's more common in children. Yeah, to take your child out and be able to eat somewhere and have them, you know, eat safely, then it's a massive positive thing that you would definitely share with your community.
And I don't think allergy sufferers should have to stay home. I think that is the attitude of a lot of chefs, is that they should stay home, they're a liability. And you're like, but they have to be humans living a social life. You know, it is massive mental damage if you exclude people, and especially children in schools. They have a label on them saying allergy sufferer, or they have their picture on the wall, and it is a hidden disability. You can't discriminate against people, and even vegans now are protected under the Equalities Act. This is going to be big. You need to, if you're a food business of any kind, you need to pay attention to allergies, vegans, people on the plant-based continuum, because otherwise you're going to get outcompeted and left behind, and you're not going to have a business, or you're going to have an accident.
Yeah, exactly. So and all that. So in your book, you talk about you have ways of doing this, don't you? You have a step-by-step process, and you have resources that businesses can refer to help them kind of find their way through this process.
And a lot of it is not just me talking about technical food safety stuff, because I know I've mentioned some laws and trading standards claims and those sort of things. Some of it is just understanding your consumer and understanding you're going to make more money if you look after these people. And sometimes there's a simple solution, such as protecting your vegan option and making sure it's not contaminated with milk. That serves a quarter of the market.
So there is definitely a big audience that.
And like you were saying about children, they have allergies. Don't confuse allergies with lactose intolerant, which is extremely common. But the result is the same. They want to avoid milk. So if you serve the allergy sufferer, you're also serving vegans and the people that it's not health, life or death. So if you can serve these, I know it's extreme to have a life or death problem with food, but it's also very normal.
A reality.
Yeah, it's a reality they have to accept, and it's a learning curve. But the main thing is to want to do it and to care, and it will make your business future-proof, because there's only more allergy sufferers, more diagnostics that they can figure out what they're allergic to, and there's more expectation that they should be included because the competitors are already starting. And all these new plant-based products, if they are made in a place where there's no may contains, as in it's a plant-based factory, it's only come from the field to the factory to you can make free from claims. And I think that free from thing is scary for liability and lawyers and food safety people, that no one would ever suggest you do that. They're too scared to suggest you serve these people because of liability, when I'm saying if you cover your back for liability, you can do whatever you want with your menu and your customers, and you look like the absolute prestigious exclusive place to go, really. And I've been in many cities, even in the UK, where it's quite good for vegan options, where I can't eat there because it's basically cooked in cheese fat.
Gosh, is this a difficult process? Is it complicated? What do restaurants need to kind of consider before, and food outlets need to consider before they can kind of go ahead with something like this and become, or go on the journey towards becoming free from outlets?
Well, there'll be places out there already. A lot of hotels can already serve someone with an allergy. And the allergy sufferer has no idea because they haven't put it anywhere. They said, contact us if you have dietary preferences. That's normal to see on all menus. And I think I've talked to a few people who've worked in high management positions in hotels, and they've said, I thought we were already inclusive. And it took me quite a long time. I met them more than once, or maybe even 4 or 5 times before they realized what I was saying was that they weren't inclusive because they weren't openly welcoming people with dietary preferences. They were still treating them like an annoyance because you have to do this if you want this.
Yeah.
And I'm saying if you make the customer journey really easy, give them the information in advance. Like on your website, you can have your allergy information.
Yeah.
And a little trick, if you have the allergy information written on your website instead of a PDF tick sheet, complicated matrix,
download,
which is what most places have, that's really common. And that meets all the legal requirements. But if you make it awesome, that they can go, oh, look, I can press vegan and all the vegan options come up. I also have milk. I also have lactose intolerant. And of course, people with lactose intolerant might also check the vegan options. So I don't want milk in my vegan option. Then I can still have all of these things. And that is exciting. I've seen a menu like that and I got very excited. It's in my book. And it's brilliant for Google because you just go, oh, what if you wanted a vegan gluten-free option? They know that because they've got gluten-free and vegan written on the same menu. But when it's a searchable PDF, when you just get a PDF, it doesn't help you. And you have to learn. The customer has to understand your PDF. There's still a danger there that they've misunderstood. And it's harder to update a PDF. It could easily be outdated because you've forgotten to update it. Yeah. So they still need to check. And as well with the law changes, I think takeaways are underestimating how much is expected of them. That they go, oh, ring us if you want our allergy information. I'm not going to ring a takeaway and trust the person at the other end that they know about allergies. If I can see what the ingredients are, I at least know I could ring. I at least know there's some possibility. Yeah. Whereas usually in a restaurant or a fast food place, takeaways, I'd assume they can't serve me, to be honest. I'd rather watch them prepare the food. Whereas if you have this communication, that is a big part of it, and that doesn't cost you anything. I know changing websites probably does, and changing the way things are worded on a menu takes a bit of time. But the first thing is just to change your mindset. It doesn't cost anything.
No. And you can talk about that as well. You're already doing marketing. You can add that to your marketing. You can.
And if you're already inclusive and you're already capable of managing allergies, you just have to figure out the way you're going to communicate to the consumer that all you have to do is tell us and we can do this.
Yeah.
And if we have milk-free version available, please tell us because you're not going to get it if you don't ask for it. And that is a security trick. So the chef doesn't have to worry about someone wanting milk-free because he'll be told they want the milk-free version and he'd have to go and make that separately, which would take more time. However, there's no risk that someone doesn't tell you.
Yeah, that's it.
Which is another risk. And it is a risk, especially in 16 to 25-year-olds. They're the most likely to die of anaphylaxis because they didn't tell.
What they just don't say, or they're too embarrassed. Or...
Yeah, it's a confidence thing. And it is you don't want to have the same conversation 20 times a day just because you want to eat, and, sometimes it's hard to confer this seriousness. Like, I've got milk allergy. Yeah. So you want that communication to be straightforward, and you need to train people to know that because the general public don't know about allergies. And maybe that is the way forward in life, that if the government make it on the curriculum in schools and chefs have to learn it in college, or it's required before you're allowed to handle food, that awareness will last forever.
Yeah.
In that generation. So we could start with that 16-year-old sort of age where we go, right, this is danger in life. You probably develop your own allergy because you're at high risk now of being born. If you're born now, you're at high risk of having an allergy because the numbers of people with allergies is increasing. Like another pandemic,
Wow.
And a number of people turning vegan is also doing that exponential increase.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think our attitudes to kind of eating and what we eat have taken such a 180-degree turn, because since, you know, the last couple of years, people are thinking more about what they eat. They're considering their impact on the planet. So I can, you know, and it's plain to see with the amount of plant-based and vegan stuff coming out that this is not just a minority anymore.
It's really fast changing, isn't it? It's really going fast with the COVID situation. People have started thinking about things and trying to, maybe they're criticising a bit more of the government legislation powers, and they haven't realised these things before. But really, my favourite example is fish and chips, right? I think you know this one.
Yeah.
How do you make, I think some of you as well have probably watched Seaspiracy, which is basically saying that fishing is never going to be sustainable, even when it's got a sustainable logo on it, because it's harming the environment. Fishing has a lot of bycatch, so it's not sustainable. And then animal agriculture is not sustainable. It's very polluting. And it's just physics that if you bypass the food chain through an animal, you only get 10% at maximum. It's probably like a sixth of that. So it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of crops, it's a, you know, all the levels of water, so many air pollution, damaging the water system with basically animal poop. Even fish poop, you know, farm fish is also a massive pollutant.
Yeah.
So if you're an environmentalist, you should be already heading towards a plant-based or vegan, whichever one you want to call yourself. It's completely up to the individual not to be in a box, really. It's same with allergies and intolerances and preferences and health problems. Do what you want, I think. But I think that's the fundamental thing. How do you make a fish and chip shop sustainable if fish isn't sustainable? Well, you can make half your menu plant-based.
Yeah.
So there's huge marketing capabilities of having a vegan option.
Yeah.
Call it a green option, call it whatever you want to call it. Just make sure there's a little star somewhere that says it's suitable for vegans or suitable for allergy sufferers. And it can be these hidden cues. It doesn't have to be on. I think a lot of people think, oh God, I'm going to have all these icons on my menu. No, that's really confusing. Don't do that. Just have a very good way of arranging your ingredients. That doesn't have to be on the menu. It just has to be on the menu that you have that available. It can be a QR code these days. It can be a filterable menu.
Yeah.
It's so sophisticated what you can do. There's apps coming out where you can put in your dietary preferences and it goes into the system automatically, or there's chefs that can have their ingredients and then they can print labels on demand. There's all this technology coming into it. And with the law change, that's going to be vital for the business to be efficient. That now's the time to be mastering this new modern skill, because it's a very scary reality that so many people need this information. And it's even like calories now are on menus. It's only going to get more requirements. It's not going to get less. So if you invest in it now, managing your ingredients, you're saving yourself a lot of pain when there's a new law.
Yeah. So the law change that you mentioned, is that Natasha's law?
Natasha's law, yeah, it's on the 1st of October in the UK this year.
Okay.
And I think with COVID, people have forgotten about it because obviously there's higher priorities.
Okay.
And it's just about the information you give has to be accurate and available. And I think that's interpreted, so there'll be a bit of a learning curve how it's enforced. So I would always say, like I say with if you serve the allergy sufferer, you're safe for everyone else.
Yes.
If you have really good allergy information and a good way of communicating, you're gonna, doesn't matter what the guidance is, you're gonna have aced it.
Yeah. Perfect. So all this information is in your book. And so your book, who would you say that it's for?
I'd say it's actually written for anyone. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to have a degree in food safety or environmental health, or you don't have to be a chef even. You could just be the person in charge. Like you do really well with this because you deal with restaurants.
Yeah.
Anyone in the food service industry, especially CEOs that probably think they know this and they don't realize they're not already doing this. Marketing people in the food industry, but mostly I had really good feedback from chefs, which sort of melted my heart a little bit, is that they use it as a reference guide, because some things like gluten-free is in their face, you know, because it's a trade-in standards thing. So it's mentioned all the time because a lot of people can do gluten-free. A bakery probably finds it hard, But otherwise, like a restaurant could do gluten-free. And the wording is very specific how you're allowed to say it. You're not allowed to say we've made this with non-gluten containing ingredients, which I used to think that was quite good. Like, this is made without milk, those sort of claims, you have to be quite careful with the wording.
Okay.
And I think if that worries people, this book is really good for them because it explains in simple, normal people, not techie people's terminology, especially the people making these apps. They should really do with this because they can say who's trained, they can get all this extra promotion about showing off how good this food business is with alongside the compliance.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes allergy sufferers should read it as well, just to make themselves more safe, because they might not realize how hard it is for a chef to guarantee zero in a dish, especially because the waiter or something else in the kitchen could stuff it up. And I think they always should ask about how it's cooked. And some vegans should express that they prefer it when it's not got a may contain on it, because I think it's just accepted that vegans will accept this because that's what the vegan society say. Whereas I'm a vegan for the animals, for the environment, for myself, especially since I figured out I'm very lactose intolerant, and that is something that a lot of vegans don't realize. I have a friend who realized she had IBS for years, and the medication made her feel worse, so she just accepted that she feel horrible all the time. And it was lactose intolerance. So when she became a vegan, and she's the hardcore activist extreme vegan, all of her symptoms went away. So she got rewarded there for being, and she started to learn to cook for herself, because when she's sort of the person that helped me see how easy it is to be vegan, especially in the UK. It is really ahead with options, and the innovation in that area is amazing. Even if you want to call it plant-based, I don't really care what you want to call it, but she's like, it's this easy. You do have to learn to cook to begin with, and learn how to shop. But when we get together, we're the junk food vegans. And then I'm trying to, feed my kids healthy. So I'm still in between I have the intention of being the whole food plant-based, but then plant-based in America means, McDonald's and Impossible Whopper. That just means substitute the meat, and that annoys me.
No, it's not exactly the
I
idea of why you would
food.
Do it. Yeah,
I want my plant-based fish and chips.
Yeah, that's it. So you're in Denmark. So what's it like in Denmark for vegans?
Copenhagen's quite good. But I think the problem for vegan restaurants, and actually any vegan food and plant-based too, is that you rely on people traveling, because you are a minority. Not just everyone would want to eat with you. And I think like having these meat alternatives is what it's for. It's so everyone could eat there. Everyone can eat there. It's just some people really want their meat.
Yeah.
But I think for options, having a vegetarian option's normal. Yeah. Having a vegan option's getting more popular suddenly. It's very recent. It's very behind the UK. It's like 1 or 2 years. The supermarkets only just started having a vegan section. That's so behind. It's so frustrating. They were quite good at dairy products, and even Arla, the biggest, it's one of the world's biggest dairy producers, but obviously it's Danish, and they're very dairy over here with Lurpak and all sorts.
Of course,
and very piggy. But these big companies are going plant-based, and it's because it's competitive. Of course they are. It's for money. Money. But their options aren't obviously as good as the originals. With the plant-based company that's grassroots, like Oatly's is a really good example as well. Like Oatly's is the best oatmeal.
Yeah, of course.
Just because they're so cool with their marketing. And they've got Naturally in Denmark as well, which is a plant-based business. And they can outcompete, the local supermarket now has got its own home brand of all the vegan options. But they're not as good because they have may contains on. You know what I mean? It's like
a compromise.
It's recognizing the unique selling point that if you can guarantee it doesn't contain animal, make sure you show that off, because it's not normal that you can have a product without these may contains on, because of the complexity of the food chain.
It's just adding that element of trust, isn't it? It's that trust element that is going to be the clincher.
But if you go outside of Copenhagen, it's absolutely rubbish.
Oh, okay.
You have to go to the supermarket. There is a chain of hotels I always stay with, because they have a inclusive breakfast buffet where they have a separate area for gluten-free. It is a franchise. Some places are not understanding the milk-free or plant-based section. They've got lactose-free in there, and I'm like, That's milk. And that's a risk, because I've talked to someone, I've said, I'm vegan, what can I have on a buffet, especially during COVID, where everything was sort of put on a plate for you instead of just being, usually it's separated. This was more like on a plate and then it's already definitely contaminated. So I couldn't have any of the pre-plated stuff. So I was asking this, she looked like the head of the breakfast restaurant. And she was confusing lactose free with vegan. And so she said, oh, you can have all the breads, you can have all of this, have all of that. And I go, you need to check that that's not just lactose free, it's actually milk free. Oh no, you can't have anything. I got a gluten-free biscuit because it happened to be milk-free, and like jam was okay. And I couldn't 100% guarantee it was vegan. I had to take a guess, and then I couldn't get anything without sausages on it or without eggs. So I was like, right, I'll go check the muesli, because sometimes muesli, especially in other countries, I've tried in the UK as well, they put milk powder in it and sugar.
Milk, yeah.
And I think both are gross for me. Yes, I just like having my oats with oats, But here you can normally choose all these different nuts and seeds, and also like their muesli display is awesome. But during COVID, it was really, really poor. So I was like, I'll have a biscuit and a coffee, and I don't add anything from the coffee machine. I'll have an instant coffee. They had plant-based milk, so at least I got my coffee in the morning with milk because I can't drink it. But yeah, no, I was really. But it's important for me when I'm working that I get breakfast. It's really important for me, especially if there's not something available during the day. So that hotel has my loyalty, including when I go on holiday with my family. That I even only stay in cities where there is one.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I wondered about that breakfast. Did the bread have milk in?
It did. It had lactose-free milk in it, because they think, the most people have lactose intolerance, right? That's the biggest percentage with dietary preferences, and gluten-free is a close second. So say 10% of people have lactose intolerant. That's only in Europe. I think naturally it's like 60%, and I think in other countries it's 100% of people have lactose intolerant because it's natural. So they do lactose-free because it's a very common dietary preference, and they do gluten-free, which might be 1% celiac, 6% intolerance. It's hard to tell when you get further along the line, but there's a lot of people avoiding gluten because they think it's unhealthy, or they want to be fit, or there's other reasons, right? Or they suspect. So that's second. And then I think they're missing out with this milk-free.
Yeah, definitely.
And animal-free is massive.
Yeah, milk is in everything, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think they can't make this milk-free claim quite often because it relies on so many different people. They can only doesn't contain ingredients that are milk, and that's very hard for people to understand and communicate, and especially the allergy sufferer has to understand all of these other elements which they might have no idea about.
And it's just making that very easy for them, just kind of getting
it needs to be standardized.
Right. Getting your processes right so that you can actually appeal to the whole audience, to appeal to everyone.
Yeah, and it might just be one chopping board with one set of tongs and a separate pan, and those things are always cleaned properly. They're not just put in with everything else, and then you can keep them in a protected box. Even this is the guaranteed allergy-free box, and then it doesn't even matter what allergy. So I've talked to chefs and they thought this one box is just 14 allergy-free, and you're like, it's really hard to make a meal without 14 ingredients. Really hard, especially if you're including gluten as well. Then you're like, really, that's impossible. And that's where they stop. They go, oh, that's impossible. But no, you can use the same board for the milk-free and the gluten-free. Even if it used to have gluten on it, that board has to be really well maintained, cleaned properly. You probably have to clean it by hand with new equipment, or dry it with disposable equipment, so that it can't possibly be contaminated by any other equipment. And it's having that sort of, what does a process look like? Because if you haven't experienced it before, I'd freak out if I had to prepare a meal for someone who's anaphylactic in my kitchen. And I even had a babysitter with a peanut allergy, and she has nearly died 6 times. That I was like, I put the peanut butter on the balcony. I don't know. I've washed the children. We haven't had peanut for a week, but she just said, I'm not going to eat here. That's all. That was her protection. I'm just not going to eat here. As long as I haven't eaten nuts today, I'll be fine. And she has some like cross reactivity with normal nuts as well. So she always says I'm peanut free. But she went to a wedding and they served her, I think it was almonds. They were going, oh yeah, but that's not really a nut. like, if someone tells you they have a nut allergy, you just assume it's everything related to nuts. Even people argue about coconuts, because in America, coconuts is also a nut. It's not. They're all like, it's the classification's complicated, but peanuts are not a nut. And she's like, but I said peanuts. So it doesn't matter if it is or isn't a nut. I have a reaction to it. And in a factory, commonly, wherever they make tahini, which is sesame, right? They probably have the same machinery that they've used for peanut butter. So it's being aware of where the risk is, and that, that's beyond the normal person. And the normal person is a food handler. The normal person is a waiter. Chefs have to start somewhere, and I think it is just wanting to know more is the beginning, and it is really complicated, but you can find a simple solution, like the allergy-friendly vegan option solves 4 of the problems in one.
Yeah.
And then you've got the whole plant-based people that love it as well.
Yeah.
And the religions that want to avoid animal.
Yeah. No,
I'm trying to make them very fair with the claims they make, so that they're transparent and honest, because it is very, very difficult to be 100% inclusive for someone who has anaphylaxis to peanuts. You might not be able to do it if you've got peanuts in your kitchen. I get that. But it doesn't mean you can't serve someone with a milk allergy just because you can't serve the peanut allergy. I think it is just having the ideas are not there, because it's the status quo is they don't serve them.
Yeah, that's it. But no, I think you're right. I think there's a market out there, and I think it's accessible. So your book.
I've got a question for you, Verity. I've got a question for you, because I know, I'm assuming you have to make disclaimers quite often, because I've experienced this recently. It is like, I don't know how to make a disclaimer about book copyright. I don't know how to make a disclaimer about cookies, privacy policies. So what do? I go to someone else and go, what's the standard? I'll use that, because I don't know. And it's exactly the same with allergy disclaimers, especially vegan, because vegan is a bit of a blurred line sometimes, depending who you talk to about how vegan they are or why they're vegan. And I think sometimes it's just whatever the vegan society says. Whereas we don't have to be a member of the vegan society to be vegan, and I don't have to fulfill any criteria to call myself vegan. So basically be aware that it's a continuum.
Yes, that's it. It's kind of not a black and white situation, and there's different levels. Yeah, no. So your book is available on Amazon, and it's available on Kindle as well.
And if people go through you, Verity, it's available free.
Wow.
So I can send you a coupon.
Oh,
so you can go in Amazon, and then you put, it's all private, all your payment and everything. It's all someone else. Amazon does all that. I like that, because taxes are complicated. Again, I know nothing about taxes, so I give that to someone else to do.
Yeah.
So that's it. They just have to ask
you,
and they get a coupon, and then it's basically the postage. If it's in the UK, the postage from Amazon is quite reasonable.
Yeah.
And if you have Prime, it's free. So it's just the cost. Yeah, it's at cost. Yeah.
Okay then. Well, I'll put the information below, and people can get their copy of your book. But no,
thank you so much.
It's been really wonderful to speak to you today. Thank you very much. You have so much insight, and it's just a whole different area that really I don't think has been considered. So I think you're kind of you're shedding light somewhere that we haven't seen before. So thank you for that.
I've decided to accept I'm quite unique, and that there's a sort of an education gap that I have to sort of people get used to me, and then they love it, and they love it because when people are happy with you, they give you tips. I don't know, they give you really good feedback. I think you just feel that return on investment that's sort of a real human.
Yeah,
it's not just about money, is it?
I think definitely, and I think like business and marketing is now about humanity. It's about not big business, it's about the actual people behind it, and it's about the values of the people, and if they align with your values, then that's a success. So I think it's kind of changing so much, but I think what you're talking about is definitely helping businesses to align their values with their customers, which is going to create success.
Yeah, and understand them. And you need to be a good business, you need to understand your customers, even if there's lots of different customers for the same thing. Like a vegan restaurant, 80% of them are not vegan. 80% of customers are not vegan. That's why they're there. You have to understand that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much for your insights. It's been lovely speaking to you today. And,
it's always great speaking to you.
Thank you. All right then, Heather. Well, have a lovely rest of the day, and I'll speak to you again soon.